Good evening again, everyone. We're now getting ready to begin the process for you to see the three finalists that's here. So I will ask everyone to please silence their phones, to please put them on vibrate or mute. Thanks again. Welcome to Paterson Public Schools. I'm Commissioner Redmond. I'm the Vice President of Paterson Board of Education. And I'm just going to tell you how this process started, where we are, and where we're going. Again, we hired a firm by the name of Hazard, Young, and Atea, or better known as HYA, to conduct the National Superintendent search. During this process, we had 37 candidates that applied, and then the search committee was formed of community members and board members. During that process, the committee members narrowed it down to 7 candidates. Last Saturday, the Board of Education members themselves met 6 of the 3 finalists, and we brought those before you. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sean. He's going to do the introduction of all candidates. And if you have any questions, please write them down so we can have an orderly fashion, and we'll try to get to the questions at hand. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Redmond. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, you'll have an opportunity to hear from the finalists for the superintendent position in Paterson City Schools. Questions were sent to the Paterson School Board in advance by community members, and we selected 10 questions that will be asked to all candidates. Candidates also will have an opportunity to provide you with a 3-minute introduction of themselves. They will give a brief presentation sharing their vision for Paterson Public Schools, and then we'll have about 25 minutes of question and answer. Once you hear from all candidates, you will have an opportunity to go to the school system's website and provide the school board feedback on your perspectives of the 3 candidates that you will meet tonight. Well, at this time, I would like to introduce you to our first candidate. This is Dr. Newell, and she's going to take 3 minutes to introduce herself to you. I'll turn the mic over to Laura Newell.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be back here in Paterson Public Schools. So just briefly, since I only have 3 minutes to talk about my leadership story. So I was actually born and raised in the Caribbean island of Jamaica, and I came to this country when I was 13 years old in the 9th grade. I could probably say not one of the best times to do that transition, but I came in the 9th grade and worked hard, but I immediately realized that I was invisible in my high school. And so, went through the high school, worked hard, and I think one of the first moments when I realized when low expectations were set upon me is when I was in either my junior or my senior year. My guidance counselor called together a lot of kids in her class, and I was walking around at the end of the school day, and I saw the kids in the class, and I had not gotten an invitation. So I went to her the next day, and I asked her, I said, was there something, did you overlook? Because, I heard that it was a college prep, to get to college. And she said, no, it was intentional. You definitely did not get an invitation. And so when I spoke with her, I said, well, I want to go to college too. And she said, are you serious? And I said, yes, I'm very serious. And at the time, we had everything on paper. It was nothing electronic. It was in the 1980s. And she said, well, what I can do, I can give you the paperwork for the community college. And I said, well, I want to go to a 4-year college. And she was really stuck on the fact that I actually wanted to go to a 4-year college. And I think it's at that point, a lot of times when people ask me of my experiences, I always go back to that experience. If I did not have parents who were advocates what would have happened? What would have happened to my educational journey? And so I applied on my own with my parents, I got their support, and then I got accepted and went off to college. And so I stand before you knowing that sometimes low expectations can really be so detrimental to kids. And, I have always been a fighter for families. I believe in families, and as an immigrant, I understand that sometimes the needs and the resources may not necessarily be there, but I am here to stand before you to tell you that hard work and having high expectations can get you very far, and I'm just so honored to be back here in Paterson, which is like my home. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And now we will give Dr. Newell 10 minutes to present her vision and where she thinks we should move forward in Paterson.
Okay. I'm flexible and I'm situational, so we will make this work, right? And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the vision for taking Paterson forward. So it is called Onward and Upward. All right, so Paterson, at a glance, we have approximately close to 26,000, a little bit under. In terms of students with disabilities, they're about 16%, and English language learners, 25.8%, almost 26%. Economically disadvantaged, 66%. And in terms of the schools, we have them broken out like this. Now, just as a point of reference, I got all of this from the NJDOE official website. Thank you. Can you hear me? So in terms of the demographic breakout, we have 68.5 Hispanics. In terms of blacks, we have almost 20%, 19.4%. Asian population, we have almost 6%, and Caucasian, 4.8%, almost 5%. And so the mission and the vision of the Paterson Public Schools, the district will be a leader of 21st century innovation, where students develop habits of lifelong learning and excel academically. And the mission is recognizing our traditions, the diverse community and partnerships. The Paterson Public Schools will provide an academically rigorous and safe environment for all the students to meet the social, emotional, and academic needs. All right, so some of the issues that we are seeing in Paterson, and I've broken them out this way: equity, staff support, school climate and culture, accountability, and then the needs of all learners. In particular, when we look at breaking out the different demographic groups of ELLs, those are the English language learners, gifted learners, and our special education learners. All right, so these are some of the performance metrics for English language learners. The English performance for reading. So we see from grades 3 through 10, and it's a lot of information here, but what I wanted to really just focus on is in grade 7, the highest, the orange, that we've ever been is at 42% in terms of meeting the standard. So as you can see, it fluctuates over time, and this is going from 2016 to 2019. So for math, we also see a trajectory where it steadily over time does a little bit of a decrease. And so, we see that it bumps up at Algebra 1, but over time, it seems to be heading down. And a part of the concern, and especially in a district, and I know in my district, we're really concerned about learning loss, and that's something that's really just nationwide. So although this data is what was the most recent on NJDOE, because there have been differences in assessments, we also know that we have to be concerned about this whole thing of learning loss, because it really has been 2 years where folks have been on and off behind the screen. All right, so the strategic plan, A Promising Tomorrow, Together We Can, was created under the leadership of Superintendent Schaefer, where she pulled together all of the community members and the stakeholders. And so the strategic plan will guide the work of the school district and the Paterson Board of Ed. And so the following are the 4 goals and objectives. So goal 1 was teaching and learning. Goal 2, facilities. We do have some of the oldest buildings in the state. Goal 3, communications and connections. And goal 4, social emotional learning. And so in terms of our priorities for moving forward, priority 1 is when we think about some of the district and individual targets that we're setting across the district and our expectations for our kids, we're seeing when we start with elementary, our kindergarten, we have to see what is the kindergarten readiness assessment and is it working? We know that we have to look at the New Jersey student learning assessments. We have to see how are the kids reading on, in their specific grades. Are they reading on grade level by grade 3? Because we know that grade 3 is also a very, very important time that they should be, if you see them starting to slip, then we know that we could have some potential long-term issues. And in terms of percentage of kids in advanced math by grade 5, what is the data telling us? So for middle school, we're also looking to see, yes, the assessments, but we're also looking to see how are the kids doing in terms of the PSAT for grades 8 and 9, and the percentage of students in algebra level for math or higher, and then same thing in terms of for English and for science subjects. And finally, for the high school, as we're getting them prepared to go off to be career or college ready, how are we doing in terms of AP classes, the IB classes, dual enrollment? Is every child having an opportunity to be dually enrolled? Technical licenses, certification. What about experiential learning where they can actually have some internship opportunities? And so, along with that too, we're also wanting to make sure in terms of the graduation rate, are we working to get these kids through and off to college or to the career of their choosing? And so priority 2, we have to be very, very clear about our big goals, right? And so we have literacy, math. We also have school, climate, and culture that we want to be looking at. And so we have to also have our staff members be engaging in learning communities where there's the focus on data analysis, critical thinking, rigorous instruction, student engagement, and curriculum implementation. And one of the things too is I'm a big proponent, it has to be effective professional development, not just professional development, but it has to be effective, and it really has to close the loop. And so priority number 3 would be to revisit the strategic plan. Be clear about the accountability measures. Are they measuring what we want them to measure? Is there accountability throughout the entire system from top to bottom? Is there alignment between what we say we believe and what we're actually achieving? And then, is it bold enough for the outcomes we want? And align school improvement plans to these targeted goals. Things must be aligned across the spectrum. And also, very, very important, we need to realign the budget around our targeted goals. So if we have targeted goals, we have to make sure that we have the resources and support to make sure that we meet these goals that we've set in place. Okay, priority number 4. In terms of assessments, are they aligned with our standards? And so we have to identify appropriate reading and math assessments that are aligned with the state's guidance. Formative data, those can always be monitored by staff, and updates to be shared with the parents so that they're also in the loop to know how their students are doing. And also periodic assessments given on an interim basis so that, everyone is fully in the system knowing how these kids are doing. And then priority number 5. Is the curriculum aligned with the student learning standards? And are our formative assessments aligned with the rigor, right? And is the curriculum providing enough support and guidance to support our gifted students, our special education students, and our English language learners? And is the curriculum being taught with fidelity? Are we sticking with the fidelity? We can have as many things as we want, but is there fidelity to the process? And will our curriculum support our goals of personalization of instruction? How is that looking? Are we personalizing the instruction for our students? And then another thing, are we having a digital platform that's effective? Okay? How is that looking? How is that working in terms of providing 21st century classroom design? And so expectations from year 1 after doing all of this, my expectation would be parents and staff would be very, very clear about their students' growth in reading and math from grades 3 through 12 if we implemented all of these with fidelity. We will know if the English, math, and science curricula are rigorous and provide guidance for our gifted, special ed, and English language learning students. And schools will be very clear about the focus. There wouldn't be any fuzziness. They'd be very, very clear. And through all of this, we will see moderate increases in reading and math performance due to the fact that our efforts were intentional. And we will have a newly revised strategic plan that is bold and set targets and bringing in a lot of accountability. And so the vision and the expectation for moving forward is our journey will be focused and systematic. Our children will and can achieve at high levels, and we will be committed to children first. We will be inspired by measurable results, and we will not let Paterson Public School students down. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Newell. You were right on time. So we have about 25 minutes where we're going to go into the questions that were submitted in advance by our community. And the very first question that we have is, can you please describe actions you've taken in the past to improve academic achievement for students in a school district with similar demographics as Paterson, and highlight any significant results you have achieved?
Okay, so I have been fortunate to be in 3 districts in 18 years, and the first one was when I was in Newark Public Schools. And among my many responsibilities in Newark is I was the executive director of school transformation, where we had won a SIG grant, which is a school improvement grant for $21 million. And at that point, the superintendent in Newark, we had conversations about what that would look like, and so we had 7 schools. It was part of a global village zone, and we had 6 elementary schools that would feed into the high school. And so a lot of what we did was being very purposeful about the curriculum and being very purposeful about the supports that we provided these 6 elementaries and 1 high school. And so, I'm pleased to say that we did see moderate increases in performance for language arts and math. We were able to bring in a lot of professional development for our teachers, and they were then able to pour into our students. I think the next one too is, while here in Paterson, I had the pleasure of having quite a few central office departments, and one of them is towards the end of my time here, I was a chief officer for reform and innovation. And I worked closely with the curriculum department when Institute for Learning was brought in with the curriculum department. And so we did IFL work, which was me working with my team, supporting the curriculum department in terms of creating innovation zones and, really pushing forward a lot of the supports to our students. And then finally, where I am now, we have what we call almost like a safety net for our kids who come in. A lot of them are the most at-risk kids in the county. And so we actually provide individualized instruction to these kids because they could come in at a certain grade. It doesn't mean that they're actually on grade. And so we tailor and personalize and individualize the instruction. And I'm pleased to say I'm now in my 7th year as superintendent, and we have seen the needle move, and we are seeing that there is progress. Moderate progress. Some are doing better than others, but there's progress overall.
Thank you. Question number 2. Can you describe how you plan to work with Paterson's unions to promote a positive work environment and support school employees?
So, I think in terms of working with unions, because where I am now, I work with unions, and it's really all about bringing everybody to the table. Sometimes it's before we can even get to the what of the situation, we need to figure out how we're going to be working together. We have to work together. It doesn't matter the side of the table that we're on. We have to get together because we're doing all of this work for the benefit of our students. And I think as long as that is our guiding light and our North Star, that whatever we're doing is for the benefit of our students, I think we should be able to sit down and really have conversations on behalf of our kids. I think a part of the thing too is, we all have a goal in mind. So the goal for the administration may not necessarily be always the goal of the union. But sometimes, I think the only way we can figure out how or the what or the why is to really to sit at the table and see where we are. And sometimes you will find out that we're really not even all that off. But, we have to have open communication. We have to be willing to come to the table. And sometimes, it's not the most comfortable. But, if we keep it, in mind that our North Star is, providing for the best for our kids, I think it can be done and we can work well together.
Thank you. Question 3. What steps will you take to ensure teachers have the right materials and time they need to meet the needs of all students in Paterson City Public Schools, particularly our special education students and our English language learners?
So, a part of this journey as an educator is that I've also been a mom in the process. And, when you're raising children, they're so very different, right? And I have been, when I got to Paterson, I had a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I learned very early that, my younger child may be having some struggles. And, if not for colleagues who were here to guide me through and walk me through the special education process, I think it would be very, very overwhelming. And so as an educator and also as a mom who has been through it, we have to make sure that we are sticking to, for example, the individualized education plan, the IEP. If the students are English language learners, we have to make sure that we're giving them the extra supports they need. And so one of the things we have to make sure is that we're undergirding the system and really just bringing a lot of supports to these kids so that they can thrive. We know that they're brilliant. We just have to tap into how it is that we're going to teach them differently, how it is that we're going to provide differentiated learning so that we can also make sure that they're being successful as well.
Thank you. Question number 4. What experience do you have addressing facilities needs within a school district, and what steps will you take to begin addressing our aging facilities needs?
Okay, so when I got to my current location, one of the first thing I did was I did walkthroughs of all of the buildings. And so the walkthrough I did in one building, when I did my walkthrough, I I was very shocked at the condition of the building. And so here is what, when I go into a classroom, when I go into any building, I actually look at it as, and the question I always ask myself is, would that be fit for my own kids who live in my house? And so if I walk through the building and I see something that I wouldn't put my own children in the building, it's not good enough for anybody else's children. And so that's the premise that I start with. And so when I got to the district where I was, the building that we had, one of our high schools, I thought it was just unfit. It didn't smell right, it didn't look right, it was dark. And so one of the first things I did is I went back, I read the lease agreement, and we could not quite get out of the lease, but by that November, December of my first year, I wrote a letter to the landlord and told him that we were canceling the lease for the next year. And it was really my job to find a new space for those students because I felt that they deserved better. And so it's no different than here in Paterson, to see the buildings. They're some of the oldest buildings here in the state. You have to walk through the buildings. You have to see what the issues are. You have to read the long-range facilities plan. You have to look to see, in terms of occupancy rate, is it full to capacity? What's going on with the maintenance of the buildings? And so, we have, just based on the experience that I have had as a superintendent, where I have had to do these very same things, you have to be engaged. People have to see that you care about their building, that it's clean, it's orderly. And if there are other issues, you also have to take it to another level. You have to meet, with the city officials. You have to petition the, Trenton to get what you need for these kids. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're trying to raise a generation of kids. But if you have them in environments where it's not safe, it's not healthy, then, that's also problematic.
Thank you. Question 5. What is your position on charter schools, and how will you ensure that families have high-quality schooling options within Paterson City Public Schools?
So, I don't think that parents really care one way or the other if it's a traditional school or a charter school, a non-traditional school. I think at the end of the day, parents really want their kids to be in a quality school. And whatever the label, whatever the title, I think that's what parents really want. My job as superintendent is to provide such excellent programs that parents would not even consider to move their kids outside of the Paterson Public Schools. And so what that would look like is to really see what are the options that we offer, right? What is it that we're offering that we can really tighten up in terms of providing excellence to our students? The goal of the superintendent sitting in the seat is to keep the kids in the district, right? And so, at a certain point, I would like to think over the long term that the conversation will not be about, is it a good school or is it a bad school? Is it a quality this or it's really about the programs that are being provided. And so if we can, as a school district, provide programs that are excellent, that stretch our kids, I really don't think that parents would be going outside of the school district to look at other options. And now another thing too is, we can't even blame the parents who look outside because, parents have rights, they have agency, and they're really trying the best they can for their families. And so what we have to do is make a concerted effort that everything we're providing our principals and our teachers with all the support, the resources they need to be successful so that they can thrive in the classroom, because research also shows that if the teachers are happy, they in turn are more productive, and then the kids will, get all the resources and the supports they need.
Thank you. Question 6. What will you do to get more parents engaged within the Paterson City Public Schools?
So as a child of immigrants, I know that, two jobs are done to make ends meet. I totally understand that. And so, what we have to do too is to provide programs for our parents that keep them connected to the schools, right? And so one of the things that, I always like, for example, are if we offered GED classes or, learning English classes or, job preparation classes, working on the resume, or pull in the parent-teacher organization. Parents, the parents, if they know that there's going to be an activity where there are people like them speaking their language, or at least if they're translators, where they will feel more comfortable and feel more included, I think you would have a higher opportunity of parents saying, you know what, I may not be working tonight, but I'll go on down to my child's school to see what multicultural fair they're putting on or what type of parent organization activity that they're having for that night.
Thank you. Question 7 is describe how you would go about prioritizing a budget for the Paterson City Public Schools and discuss who you would bring to the table to develop your budget priorities.
So in terms of developing the budget, the way when I have structured a budget is first at the table has to be the business administrator. And then we actually have sessions for days where all of the department heads are there and they have their budget. Now, how we do it where I am, it's more similar to what we call zero-based budgeting. So everything is off the table and you have to justify why you're putting things on the table. And so, in terms of providing resources to different academic programs, when you're building the budget, you can literally just say, yes, we want to put this in, and is this other program, do we know whether or not it is working? Is it, are we getting our money's worth? So in terms of building the budget, it really has to be with everyone at the table. Everyone has to put their input in. We have to have conversations about what is working and what's not working as we do projections for the next year.
Thank you. Question 8. Improving literacy scores is a high priority for our school district. Describe what you have done to improve literacy performance in previous positions.
So I mentioned when I was in Newark, one of the things that we did was the Global Village Zone, and we had an infusion of SIG grant money. And so we brought in a lot of professional development. I am a firm believer in pouring resources into our staff members, into our principals, into our teachers, because if they are equipped, I feel that they can do a better job, a more productive job. They can be more efficient when they're teaching the kids. Now, part of the thing too is that we know that, money is something that you have to divvy it out because you can't just fully pour in. So, one of the things that, I have done in terms of, how productive, a program is are we really doing things with fidelity? Are we really doing things the right way? And so, in terms of showing progress, one of the things I'm proud to say is that because of the way that I have approached with my team how we're going to be deploying the resources, I've been fortunate to see moderate, sometimes, a little bit more than moderate gains in our literacy improvements for our kids. And sometimes we're starting really at, a lower level and we can raise them. As I mentioned before, where I am with the students who I receive, sometimes, they're coming in with not, they need some work, right? They need to do like credit recovery. We need to do some extra infusion, really personalized. And so one of the things that, we've also done as a team is we've brought in online support where we can actually test the kids as they come in. The results you get within 24 hours, we use that as a baseline. We see where their areas are, where they need some work, and from there we really pour in to really strengthen up those pieces where we see that they need those extra supports. And so, as I mentioned, I'm now in my 7th year, and I've been, very happy to see the trajectory and that kids are moving forward.
Thank you. Question 9 is, what is your experience with community schools, and how would you prioritize expanding access to appropriate resources to all schools within Paterson City Public Schools?
So I first started with community schools when I was in Newark as a part of, as I mentioned, the SIG grant. I believe that full-service community schools really bring those extra supports to assist our kids. And so, in terms of mental health support, medical, dental, vision, extra tutoring, sometimes we know that, some of the needs of our kids extend beyond the classroom. And so, this district has, I think, everything that it has all the characteristics that it can be a full-service community district, not just 1 or 2 or 10 schools across the district. I believe, the entire district, we can be offering some levels of support. Now, what would those supports be? The only way we can know is we have to survey, we have to engage the district community. If that means the parents, if that means the principals, the administrators of each of these schools, and then at that point, we have to petition the DOE, we have to petition, we have to write grants. And I think one of the things I'm very grateful for is over these years that I have been as a superintendent, I have been able to lobby. I've actually been able to get funds for my district, because that's also part of the work we do. We have to be fighting for our kids, and we have to be petitioning that we want more money. And so I really believe that Paterson can be a full-service community district, and we can get the money we need, because we really need to do whatever we can to fully support our kids in every area, not just in the classroom where the work is so critical, but across the district.
Thank you. And our final question, how will you get to know the students, parents, staff, and community here in Paterson?
So I think that means that you have to walk around, right? You have to be visible. You have to show up for the little things and the big things. You have to be in the classroom. Not just at a board meeting, or, you really have to be as visible as possible. And so people need to understand that you're connected to the work, and that, one of the things that I have been intentional about is that, you can get gobbled up in your office and the day can be done, and, you're still in meetings. You have to be intentional about going out into the schools, going out into the classrooms. You have to meet when the parent organization, they have events, you have to go out there and meet the parents. So that the parents know that, oh, she's fighting for us, she's all about what we're trying to be about. And what is that? It's about the kids. And so, because I also have 2 children, as a parent, I was also trying to, do my job, but also be visible at my children's schools, because, it's also important that you see who's with your kids all day. And so I think it's very important for the superintendent to be in the different classrooms, to go to the games, to the recitals, to whatever the concerts. I think, those things are very important to be available, and so that the parents can see you.
Thank you, Dr. Nolan. At this time, we will give you an opportunity to provide a closing statement.
I'm just so... I'm so grateful to be here. I spent 6 years here. I see some colleagues here. I see a lot of folks who I consider to be family. And, I think just when I saw the position, I was just very excited, because I felt like this would be an opportunity to come home. I have, I have 3 more years on my contract, and I had to meet with my board president last night, so you may see some stuff in the paper. But, but people know, they know my love for Paterson. I talk about Paterson all the time, and I have always felt like it was home. And, I feel like when it's after a certain point, it's time to come home. And after a certain point, you have to fight for home. And so I'm here to fight for home because I am ready to come back home. I have a lot of love for Paterson. Folks have seen me on my journey. When I was raising the little ones, if you can believe, I have a child who's now in college and the other one is in 11th grade. But, as a mom working through the special ed system, leaning on colleagues who were able to walk me through that, and then I have now been doing the special education walk because I am a mom. I'm grateful for the folks who told me about advocacy, and this is what you have to do. And so a lot of the good things that we have done here in Paterson, I believe that we can definitely take it to the next level. When I look across Paterson, I see the talent. I don't see the test scores. I go in the classrooms and I see the brilliance. And I think together we can really all work together as a community and bring it to the next level. And I would be so honored to be the superintendent to take the Paterson School District to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give Dr. Newell a round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Newell. At this time, you can walk towards the left, and I believe there's someone there to escort you.
Okay.
Please travel safely. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we may begin. At this time, we'd like to introduce you to Dr. Keith Miles. And Dr. Miles, welcome to Paterson City Public Schools.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
And Dr. Miles, what we're going to do today, we will begin with a 3-minute introduction. Then we will give you 10 minutes to present your vision for Paterson City Public Schools to the community. And then we will go through a series of 10 questions that have been submitted in advance from the community to you. And we're asking the same questions to all of our candidates tonight. Okay? And then once we do that, we'll give you an opportunity to bring closing remarks.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so we'll begin now with your 3-minute introduction of yourself.
All right. So good evening again. About 42 years ago, a young, passionate, pregnant teenage mom, she was forced to go live with her grandmother. Of course, that's my mother in Northwest Washington, D.C. That's where I'm from. She graduated high school, she had her baby, and she went on to enroll in a 2-year program for her associate's degree. She instilled in me a very strong focus on education. We didn't have much, but she ensured that we had everything that we needed. It was her dream for me to graduate and, of course, be successful. Fast forward 18 years, I graduated from our local tech high school, our public high school. I went to the prestigious George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I majored in Spanish literature and biology. While in undergrad, I was a part of a program called DC Reads, where teachers went directly into DC public schools and they tutored young struggling readers. It was there I found my passion. I was a tutor. I got some training from the school district, and I worked with young people. I saw some of the challenges in the classroom, such as overcrowded classes, resource challenges, and students who were behind multiple grade levels. Just after a couple of months of working with students, their reading levels started to jump, self-esteem jump, I got a rush, and I knew that I would be in education and that I would continue to work through my career to ensure that all of our public schools, especially our inner city schools, provided the same opportunities that I was provided as a public school student. So I went right into the classroom at graduation. I taught for 7 years Spanish and biology. After that, I was district teacher of the year, and I transitioned into an assistant principal role for 1 year, and then 6 years as a principal, 3 years as assistant superintendent. And now I'm in my 3rd year as superintendent in Bridgeton Public Schools. As superintendent, it's a very rewarding experience. Of course, I get to make my mother proud, but I also get to fulfill a dream of my own, which is to ensure, again, that young people have the same opportunities that I have, and they get the opportunity to fulfill their dreams. So these are the experiences that I bring to my work in education. These are also the experiences I will bring to my role as superintendent of Paterson Public Schools.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Round of applause. Okay, at this time, we'll give you an opportunity to share your 10-minute presentation in your vision. And so they'll put your presentation up. And we'll give you a hand mic.
All right, so of course, helping students achieve their dreams. This is my goal. That's my mother I described, GW, DC Reads, all the way of my journey to Paterson Public Schools, always taking on the most challenging roles wherever I went. Just want to jump to my vision for the school district. So great schools is essential for our students to thrive. Empowered staff at those schools, extremely important. Quality instruction, involved community, so strong community involvement, and aligned curriculum and assessments. This is the winning formula for a school district, and it's a vision that I have for a district that I lead. Of course, I've worked in several districts, Trenton Public Schools, Camden Public Schools. We did some wonderful work around our principals. This is just a quote from our U.S. Secretary of Education under Obama. There are no good schools without good principals. It just doesn't exist. So there's a focus to make a school great on the school leader. And so in all of my positions, I made sure our principals were well-resourced, valued, respected, and empowered. I made sure they were supported with professional learning communities. What that looked like in Trenton was coming in, having all of our principals as part of their own professional learning communities as clusters of leaders working together to improve all of their schools and ensure that we were giving quality instruction across the region. They receive regular feedback from their colleagues, so they're working as a cohort, they're visiting each other's schools, they're sharing data, and so there's feedback built in there, and there's feedback built in from their supervisor. And they're freed up to do the important work of growing and empowering and supporting our teachers. Now we move to empowered staff. And so where you have good principals, great teachers come and they stay, they work hard and they grow. Same individual said this, but we know that doesn't just stop there with teachers. We're talking about our custodians, our cafeteria workers, our front office staff, guidance counselors, everybody at the school-based level are impacted by that strong leader. So we want to put lots of supports around our leaders. We want to make sure our leaders have everything they need in order to be successful, and all staff see this as a village, and we're all working together doing our part to support our young people in being successful. Quality instruction, for me, as a former teacher of the year and just someone who knows what good instruction looks like, these are some areas that I wanted to highlight for you all. Rigor is extremely important, so we don't change the bar for our English language learners or our special education students. We keep the bar high. We give them additional supports and accommodations, but the learning needs to be rigorous and the bar does not change. We want to empower our students to be self-sufficient, lifelong learners. So when the teacher's not there, when we have something like COVID going on, our students can continue to learn and flourish. We support students in reading by third grade. We know that's a critical grade. Students begin to read to learn after third grade, so they won't be able to access the curriculum at the same level if they don't develop those phonics skills to read by third grade. And we want to make sure another benchmark algebra by ninth grade, so that, or eighth grade, or even seventh grade, so that students get exposed to higher level math courses. That's a gateway course. We need to prepare all of our students for algebra. So those are just some of the characteristics of quality instruction. This is critical, aligned curriculum and assessments. So there's a bar set. That bar doesn't change. The assessment, the NJ SLA, comes out every year. It compares schools. It looks for schools that are in the bottom 5%. Those schools become targeted or comprehensive support schools. We want to make sure that our teachers have real-time feedback on a regular basis to know who needs what supports. You can't do that unless your assessments are aligned and rigorous as the test, and we know the test is very rigorous, quick and easy to administer, so we don't want students taking long exams and spending lots of time testing, taken away from instruction. Scores are turned around quickly, and results are accurate and reliable. I think about this like when we go to the doctor's office, it's a quick test that you can take to just show where you are, and the doctor will know if you need to see a specialist or what you need to do. We need assessments that are quick and easy so we can diagnose our children and accelerate their learning. When it comes to involved community, this one's very important. Again, I mentioned the idea of a village. As part of my dissertation, I looked at building relationships with new school communities, and it really takes positive messaging out in the community. Everybody being behind the school district. Folks coming in like I did as a tutor from the local university to help young people after school fill in their gaps. There's community participation on school-based and district committees. The superintendent in the district through the communications planner sharing regular updates, and everybody knows what's going on in the school district. We want to hire as much local talent from the school district or from Paterson as possible. We find that people who are from the community, they're invested. We want invested folks in our district that love our children and that are committed to ensuring their success. We want the community to rally behind our district successes. This is how we ensure that our students aren't selecting other school options and they're staying in district and our enrollment is remaining high. We want to connect you all, the entire community, to all of our district platforms. Utilize those. We're in an age of technology. We want to make sure everybody's informed and everybody feels connected. And finally, we want you to hear as much as possible from the superintendent on important issues that impact our schools. So this is some of what I think about when I think about community involvement. When I look at the mission here of Paterson Public Schools, you talk about proud traditions, diverse community, and partnerships. This is something that I, as superintendent, would like to build on and honor. We want to provide academically rigorous and safe. These words came up in my definition of a rigorous classroom and a rigorous curriculum. We want our environment to be nurturing and supportive. We want to prepare students for post-secondary, and I love the vision where we're looking at future-ready learners, we're looking at innovation and lifelong learning. So we can do this, of course, when we work together to ensure that our district is a model district, that all of these strong characteristics are in place. We have our lifelong learners, future-ready leaders, college and career readiness for our young people. If you all were wondering how we're going to get there, these are the steps that I take as I enter a school district. I went back to my entrance in Bridgeton Public Schools just a few years ago, deepening my understanding, not coming in, just making assumptions, but really getting to know the community and the challenges. Thank you, sir. Conducting interviews, scheduling listening tours, making sure that I am visiting all schools in the first 90 days will be a priority, establishing and maintaining those strong relationships by posting welcome messages, attending community events, listening tours, leadership meetings. So there's a lot of engagement that'll happen in that first 90 days. And finally, before we make any plans or revisions, want to make sure that I'm clear on what I'm walking into. And so before even stepping day one into the job, I will make sure I do a thorough review of data, looking at all kinds of plans across the district. So I'll end here just with some of what I've seen and what I've done. As superintendent, my district received district-wide recognition recently as part of the commissioner's convocation. This was around our social, emotional, and mental health supports that we put in during and after the pandemic. I was honored by the Vineland African American Community Development Coalition as a leading man for exhibiting some of the characteristics of Martin Luther King. This is just for community involvement down in the Bridgeton community. As assistant superintendent, I ushered in a district leader support model. That's for those principals. 5 schools exited status while we did that work. And finally, as a high school principal, we saw proficiency gains from 11 and 13% in reading and math to 31 and 33% over a 2-year period. Increased graduation rates at Woodrow Wilson High School and Camden, New Jersey over a 3-year period, 30 percentage points as principal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. And at this time, we will begin with the questions that came to us from the community. And the first question is an extension to where you ended. Can you please describe actions you've taken in the past to improve academic achievement for students in a school district with similar demographics as Paterson, and highlight any significant results you have achieved?
Yes, so my work in Philadelphia, Camden, Trenton, they all are similar demographically. About 70% Latino, about 30% African American. My work in Trenton specifically involved me coming in as a new assistant superintendent, getting to know the community, listening and learning, hearing from teachers, hearing from school leaders. What were the challenges that were impeding them from seeing the student gains that they needed to see or wanted to see? And I took that feedback and I put in place a support structure for school leaders. We had networks of leaders. There were 21 schools, so Trenton is not as large as Paterson, but each network was 7 schools. The principals worked together. They received professional development together. They looked at data together. They pushed each other. They visited each other's schools, gave feedback. And what we found was that principals were in classrooms more. We tracked their visits to classrooms. Across our district, again, we saw 5 schools exit status during my time there. We saw student achievement gains across all of our schools. And just as I mentioned, exiting status means we're no longer in the bottom 5%. That's a start. That work needs to continue, but we were on an upward trend when I left Trenton Public Schools and took on the position as superintendent in Bridgeton.
Thank you. Question number 2. How would you plan to work with Paterson's unions to promote a positive work environment and support school employees?
So I have a lot of experience recently with our associations in Bridgeton. We settled 5 contracts in the time that I've been there. One is outstanding. It's just based on wages. I entered the district by inviting all of our association leaders to meet as part of a meet and greet. We set up a regular meeting schedule. I shared my contact information with the group. So if I want to talk about the strategy, it involves strong communication, both upfront and consistently, with follow-up meetings. And then the second part is collaboration. So throughout the district at various times, during the pandemic, we had to make lots of major decisions. So bringing those folks, making sure they were a part of committees throughout the organization, making sure they were represented. Every unit was represented when a big decision was made across our district. When there was a question, sort of sometimes vetting things through the union before we shared district-wide information. So it's approaching the union as a partner. When it came down to situations where I disagreed and the association disagreed, we prioritized what was in the best interest of students. As part of our meeting schedule, We asked that associations send ahead of time their concerns. That allowed me to pull in the directors and assistant superintendents that were needed as part of that discussion. I always challenged the association to come with solutions. We came with our solutions, and we left with the best solution for our district and for our students. So that was a method of ensuring that we kept our relationship positive and we were able to make decisions and disagree.
Thank you. Question 3. What steps will you take to ensure teachers have the materials and time they need to meet the needs of all students in Paterson City Public Schools, particularly special education and English language learner students?
So those two populations are extremely important to me during the pandemic. Our special education and English language learners and pre-K students were the most impacted in terms of learning loss. So when we're making decisions, we want to make sure we keep our most vulnerable students in mind. The decisions that need to be made in terms of materials, there's a timeline in place. There's a process from when the budget is approved, usually on a March board agenda, and that's for the year to come. So once that agenda is approved and those budget items are approved, we want to make sure there's an easy process with the business office in terms of securing everything that's needed for the fall. And so I will work with the business office as well as the chief academic officer and others to ensure that everything is in place and we have timelines and the individuals that are in charge of different areas are responsible in making those deliveries and making sure that schools are set on the first day of school. We get one first day of school every year. It needs to be strong. Teachers need to have what they need from day one, and so that's a priority. In terms of creating time for staff to do the important work of planning and providing extra support to our special education and English learners, we get an opportunity each year to sit down as a committee, look at the school calendar. Usually there's 180 required days for students. Teacher contracts might have about 186. We get to decide on our professional development days. We get to look at how many half days we want to include for things like planning and any work that needs to get done. I'm aware through my work in schools that our special education teams, they have to prepare individualized plans, as well as our English language ESL teachers have to prepare individual plans for students. That takes time. So we want to just upfront invite those folks in as part of the committee, determining the calendar for the upcoming school year and just making sure that time is built in so we don't have to look for the time once the school year gets underway.
Thank you. Question number 4. What experience do you have addressing facilities needs within a school district, and what steps will you take to begin addressing our aging facilities needs?
So this question, it makes me think about just this past week, I was meeting with student leaders and our student board representative, and a 9th grader shared with me that although he went to one of our district's newest schools, the high school, although the bathrooms are dated, he said the high school bathrooms were more clean than the ones at this new school. And so I say that to say that all districts have historic buildings, and I'm not completely versed in the facilities challenges of the district, but like any other urban district from Camden to Trenton, there are major facilities challenges in all districts. We have to prioritize health and safety first. We have to look for opportunities to save so that we can continue to improve our facilities. One of the things that I was able to do in Bridgeton Public Schools is we entered into a power purchase agreement, and we now have solar on 3 of our buildings, and the other 6 are underway or will be phased in. But just like at home, when we add solar panels, there's a savings and a long-term contract, and there's also a requirement that lighting gets upgraded and windows and things of that nature. So we were able to address roof repairs through this power purchase agreement. We were also able to address lighting. When I walked down International High School hallways, the lighting was bright. Our schools look just as bright with those new fresh lights that we were able to put in. So I say all that to say The challenges are going to be great. We have to prioritize the budget and make sure we're setting aside funds for capital projects. When we got our COVID money in Bridgeton, we actually were able to add air conditioning to 3 additional schools, the only 3 that did not have air. And so looking for those opportunities. There's lots of legislation coming down the pipe for schools, for social, emotional. We're going to be looking out for any opportunities to upgrade our facilities. And in the meantime, making sure that we're managing those immediate needs, those urgent needs, the critical ones that need to be addressed right away.
Thank you. Question 5. What is your position on charter schools, and how will you ensure that families have high-quality schooling options in Paterson City Public Schools?
So I've had an interesting experience with charter schools. In Trenton Public Schools, the one charter, K-8, that was in the district actually shut down, and their charter was not renewed, and the district absorbed their students, and the charter school closed. In Camden, when I started, there were 14,000 students. When you look up the number of students in the district now, they're about 7,000, which means they've lost a considerable amount of their students to charter schools. For me, I look at the data and the student performance data, and when we look at that, we don't see a significant difference in student outcomes over the long term when we compare charter schools to our traditional public schools. And so while the community sometimes see a charter option as fresh and new, and there may be instances where community members have lost faith in the school district, and they see charter as a better option. I'm under the belief that charter schools are just like any other schools. The leader is important, the support is important, and so I think what we can do is ensure that our schools have a number of options for students. They have those same exciting titles. We're talking about CTE programs, things that students want at their high school. We need to focus on ensuring that our high schools can compete, they can retain our young people, that they're preparing young people for the future, and we need a communication plan. I mean, one of the things I noticed in Camden is the communication plan for charter schools. It's really great. I mean, they're marketing, they have billboards, they're calling phones. I mean, they're doing a lot. So we need just as robust communication plans celebrating our schools and our successes here in Paterson Public Schools.
Thank you. Question 6. What will you do to get more parents engaged within Paterson City Public Schools?
So 2 things that I was heavily involved with is the introduction of a parent university in my last 2 districts, and all that is a series of workshops geared toward topics that parents request, so it's different for different schools. Just making sure that parents have how-to videos on our website, and they know how to access all of our district resources. That's a session as part of the parent university. But ensuring that our parents are in our schools, they have classes to support them in learning English if they like. They have opportunities to partner with legal services if they like. We have partners that come in and do those types of workshops for our parents. But just ensuring that parents are resourced and they see the school district as a place they can go to receive resources and receive guidance is important. Messaging and communication to our parents is going to be extremely important. So making sure that all of our schools have a strong communication plan in place, that each school is communicating regularly with parents through cell phone apps and phone blast systems. Those are all new technologies that have emerged across school districts. I'm really interested in seeing what the situation is with our student information system, if parents are able to check grades and that type of thing, but we want to just make sure that we're maximizing our outreach to parents. For me as a superintendent, as a new superintendent, parents are going to want to see me out in the community, at games, at events, holding meet and greets in the various wards of the city is going to be important. Hearing directly from parents, these are going to be folks who graduated from Paterson Public Schools, who have children who may have graduated. So this is a very important demographic, and I would want to, as part of my first 90 days and my listening tour, to really engage our parents. and make sure that we work together to make Paterson School District the premier district. And our parents are our biggest cheerleaders. I mean, they're the ones talking to their neighbors. They are encouraging people to come back when we're doing wonderful things, from families who might have chosen charter schools or other private school options. So keeping the messaging, over-messaging is what I call it, over-communicating, just making sure there are tons of information going out and that we're experiencing my superintendency, I could say, together. And I say that because we put out a newsletter weekly, just kind of listing out everywhere I'm going, all the things that I'm doing, all the engagement, both past and present. And so that's so parents can meet me there, so that I can get to know everybody, and just show that I'm a part of Paterson, because I will be, moving here. And so it's important that people see that, I'm not just somebody from the outside, just coming in, but that I'm a part of the community. I want to enjoy the activities and the games and everything that's happening in the district.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Question 7 is, describe how you will go about prioritizing a budget for the Paterson City Public Schools, and discuss who you will bring to the table to develop your budget priorities.
So prioritizing the budget, I always want to ensure that the budget is solid and it's aligned to goals before it's approved. So that's the first step. Board and superintendent, they come together. The board is really pivotal in the goals that we want to hit, the targets. The how-to is the school district, and that involves directors, assistant superintendents, myself. And so after visiting for the remainder of this school year, all schools, hearing from the community, putting together a nice report of what I heard and what I feel the concerns and challenges are, presenting that to the board. The board and I should be able to identify some priority areas for the upcoming budget. We want to make sure that everything on that budget is prioritized. We don't understand right now the impact that inflation will have in the future, so we're in uncertain times economically. We don't know what the future is going to look like, so we want to make sure we prioritize every purchase, that we evaluate past purchases to make sure that they're not things that are just rolling over in the budget that aren't really helping us, that we can shave off. We want to make sure, I mentioned earlier, health and safety is extremely important, so our facilities must be able to support the safety of our young people. And finally, we have to ensure that we're tapping into all funding sources. So I gave a couple examples. We actually have a grants person that we onboarded, and she was able to keep us up to date on federal grants for electric buses. And so innovations and things are coming out, and we took a few of our buses off the road, and we were able to have the feds pay for this new bus. So any kind of cost savings, there needs to be a committee of individuals, staff coming together, looking at our budget together, challenging each other. It would start with central office listing their priorities or their request. And then once we narrow down all the requirements from central office, we look at the budget in terms of our schools, and we divide up our money, and our principals go through the same process. I think the question also addressed who would be at the table. Principals is part of the annual school plan. They have parents at the table to talk about, how those funds would be spent and how the goals will be met. I would make sure we have a parent at our district conversations as well, just in full transparency. And so there's another voice in the room. Our associations would be in the room. So we just want to ensure that everybody has seen what the priorities are for the district, and they're on board with what we're doing. So when that budget comes out, the community can rally behind the budget and support the budget.
Thank you. Question 8 is, improving literacy scores is a high priority for our school district. Describe what you've done to improve literacy performance in previous positions.
So literacy is the bedrock. As I mentioned, by third grade, students should be well-versed in reading, and then reading to learn after. And so making sure that we have the right individuals on hand to diagnose, intervene when students are off track with their literacy. I think the example I gave of tutoring, having community partners that are able to step in and provide some support. You know, there's a new buzzword, which is high impact tutoring, and there's research to show its impact on students' literacy scores. What I've seen is their summer slide in terms of when students leave in the when they leave in the summer, and they come back in the fall, we see some scores dip. And so we want to make sure there's summer bridge programs in place to support students throughout the summer. A strong literacy campaign is extremely important. That gets parents involved. It allows the district to pass out books at all of its events. It makes sure that we are sparking a love for reading in our youngest students. We can invite diverse voices to come in and do read alouds at all of our schools. But we know reading is one of those, lifelong learning characteristics, and we just want to embed in our students. Like I remember my mother reading to me. We want to make sure that we spark an interest in literacy. In the classroom, what it looks like is, assisted technology in the classroom. So we want a blended classroom where teachers are able to pull in small groups while some students are using some adaptive technology, a reading program that they can do independently that's on their level, but teachers can really pull in groups and target students' challenges. And we see this, in our elementary classrooms. When we did our walks with the principals as part of our learning communities, we found that whole group instruction wasn't as effective as teachers who had more of a small group approach and really targeted the skills that students needed. And so we pushed that across the entire district, and we, of course, saw improvements in our literacy scores.
Thank you. Question 9. What is your experience with community schools, and how would you prioritize expanding access to appropriate resources to all schools within Paterson City Public Schools?
So in all of the schools where I've worked, we've had school-based youth services. We've had school-based youth services both in Camden and Trenton, and as well in Bridgeton. We didn't have 8 school-based youth services, community schools like we have here in Paterson, but we had this group of professionals, additional crisis counselors and clinical practitioners on site that offered additional supports for students, child care services, teen planning services. And so these community hubs, we can call them, they were very important. And of course, coming out of the pandemic and the shift to social emotional learning and mental health, they're more important than ever. We're seeing lots of challenges among our youth. And so expanding community schools will be the goal. I anticipate there'll be programs and funding coming out specifically for mental health supports as part of stimulus packages from the federal government, so we're going to look out for those. We want to make sure that if we get an opportunity to expand our community schools, that we place them in places where there's need. So I would be interested in looking at data, learning more about the community schools, what students they're supporting. One of the things we did in my current district is we trained all of our teachers on social emotional learning and mental health. And we wanted them to provide that service across our school in a tiered fashion, where the students who were most at risk, and we had a quick screener that was easy to administer each year, and those students who were most at risk, they received the most intensive support. So while we couldn't make every school a community school, we were able to have 4 clinical practitioners that moved around our 9 schools, and they ensured that the students who needed critical social, emotional, and mental health support, they didn't just get 1 or 2 sessions, they got ongoing support. And so there are ways to utilize the resources that we have, tier students, so we know where the need is, and make sure those schools get additional support as it relates to mental health. But I'm a huge proponent of our community schools model. School-based youth services should be expanded to every school if we had the budget. So I would be looking for opportunities to continue expansion on a needs-based basis.
Thank you. And our final question, how will you get to know the students, parents, staff, and community here in Paterson?
So a big part is face-to-face opportunity. So this type of work is very exciting, where you get to come into a community, you get to share your story, where you're from. You get to hear from the community just in terms of their expectations. You get to follow up with listening tours and town halls. I mean, we know virtual instruction did not work for our children, but it certainly allowed us to, as a group of parents and community members, to jump on for regular town halls and updates in our community. And so I would want to be as visible as possible. I would want to hold as many events as possible. In terms of a newsletter, I would like to push out a lot of information on what's happening in our schools. I intend to chronicle my visits in the first 90 days across all schools, take pictures of things that the principals feel are prideful in their school, so they're happy about. This is like one of the best things that they can show off, and I would take those pictures and just chronicle for parents so they begin to see some of the wonderful work happening in Paterson. In terms of students, all districts have to have a student board representative, and so I'm interested in meeting our school board representative, our student. Would love to set up a structure where all of the representatives from all of the schools, there's a round table of regular standing monthly meeting to hear from students. Our students are our customers while we're looking at data and we're hearing from all the adults about what's happening. The best place to go to find out how students are experiencing school is the students themselves. So prioritizing those regular meetings and bonding with our leadership at the schools, letting them see me, letting them hear from me, sharing my story. That's how I would bond with the students. The parents, we talked about in terms of our parent university, our communication across the district, and staff. Each year we get to start off the year with a clear message, with the vision, with goals, making sure that all staff hear from me as an opening message. They can see the vision, they can see where we're going. They feel a part of the vision because there was collaboration. We start off the year strong.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. You'll now have an opportunity to provide a closing statement.
So Paterson Public Schools for me is an opportunity to have a huge impact on a group of young people who look like me, who are from communities like inner city Washington, D.C., where I grew up. Every school district that I worked in, I feel that it prepared me for this role. My most recent role as superintendent, I've gotten to interact with the board. I've gotten to hear lots of voices in the community. I've gotten experience with budget. I've always wanted to work in a large urban school district. Some people might wonder, you keep talking about Bridgeton, why aren't you staying there? Bridgeton is a place where it's a very political place, just like Paterson. And so, you might think smaller district, less problems, less challenges. It's a small town. And so Paterson is, to me, I've developed my stripes and I'm ready to deal with some of the large challenges that I'm sure are apparent in this district. As you all know, I'm not from here. My focus is on the children, not on any affiliations to anybody. Working with the Board of Education will be my number one focus, making sure that we are on the same page and that we're united. When the top is together and united, it trickles down into the entire organization and we can really get things done. So I hope that my experience to you all is sufficient to lead this district to show up every day and work extremely hard for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miles. You can walk out towards the left and someone will escort you to your car. Well, thank you all for graciously coming back. We have our third candidate, Dr. Andre Spencer. So, Dr. Spencer, I'll just give you the rules for the evening here. We have 3 minutes where we'll begin, where you'll have an opportunity to share a little bit about your background. Then we will give you 10 minutes to have an opportunity to present your vision for the Paterson Public Schools. And then we will conclude with me asking you 10 questions in about a 25-minute period.
Okay.
And then you'll have an opportunity to provide closing remarks.
Awesome.
Very well.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Andre Spencer.
So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I think we're set now, so I think we're ready to rock and roll here. So good evening, and thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I do just want to share a little bit about my story and a little bit about Andre and who Andre Spencer is. So I was born and raised in the city of Baltimore. I was raised by my mom and my dad. My mom was a factory worker, and she worked from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. And so a lot of times my siblings were the ones that were helping me to complete my homework and get everything ready for school for the next day. My dad, he lived with us, but my dad had some challenges with maintaining regular employment because my dad was addicted to heroin in Baltimore. But one thing that my dad really taught me and gave me was he gave me a sense of pride. He gave me a sense of pride because something that he would always say to me, and I still remember it loud and clear today, "Boy, you're smart. You're smart just like Pops." And that made me feel good. That really made me feel excited. And I fast forward to when I was in 7th grade. One day I was sitting on my porch in Baltimore, and I was playing with a chemistry set that my mom and dad purchased me. And I made a substance. I have no idea what that substance was. I really liked science. I always appreciated science, and I enjoyed it. I took that substance to school, and I showed it to my 7th grade science teacher, Mr. Clem. Mr. Clem looked nothing like my dad, but he made me feel exactly like my dad made me feel. When Mr. Clem took that substance, he said, "Andre, what did you do? What did you put together? What did you make?" I had no idea what I put together, what it was that I did and what it was that I made. But he said to me, "Andre, you're so smart." That made me feel exactly like my dad. From that moment on, I knew that teachers make a difference in the lives of a child because it made a difference in my life. And I fast forward that on to when I went to school and I graduated, then I started teaching in Baltimore City Public Schools, and I immediately became a 7th grade science teacher, just like Mr. Clem. And I would always say to the young people that were in my class, "You guys are so smart," because I wanted to make them feel just like Mr. Clem made me feel when I was in his class. Then I became a principal in Baltimore City. And I knew that anytime I had decisions to make, I had to make sure that teachers were right there at the table because they were going to be the ones that were going to make sure that young people were going to feel good. And I wanted young people to feel good. So I even fast forward that to my experiences as a superintendent, a regional superintendent, an executive superintendent over in New York City. And something that I've always done is I brought teachers to the table, and I made sure that teachers are a part of the equation. When I was superintendent in Colorado, something that I said for our teachers is, we're going to make sure that our teachers are the best trained in the state. And we did. We had nationally certified teachers. We made sure the teachers had all of the resources that they needed to have and that they were in a safe school because I knew 100% that that was a recipe that can change any school district. So when I think about Paterson Public Schools, that's exactly what I think about. I think about making certain that we have safe schools for every single one of our young people. I think about making certain that we have resources for teachers, and teachers are the most trained individuals that we can possibly have them to be. Because something that we did in Colorado was we were one of 2 districts in the entire state that closed the academic achievement gap. 40% gains in closing the gap between our scholars of color and their Caucasian counterparts. We were one of the only districts in the state that had 25% of our high school graduates who graduated with an associate's degree alongside their high school diploma. That work did not happen simply because of myself. That work happened because of the great work that our teachers have done. And so that's the work that I look to bring to Paterson. That's the work that I look to engage with each and every one of you, our Board of Education, our parents, our community, to make sure that our young people get exactly what they need. Because ultimately, that's what's going to make a difference. And together, we're better. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll move right into the presentation for the vision of the district.
Yes, sir. I want to come out here. You know, I'm one of those people, I always tell my staff I'm not a Baptist preacher, but I do like feedback. So feel free to give me some feedback here. And when I look at my vision and our vision for our district, it's really starting with a great focus around we're better together. We have to engage in this work collectively together and make sure that our young people get what they need. It starts with this team of 10. And so when we begin to look at how we make sure that we do not allow politics or anything else to infiltrate decision-making for the young people that we serve, we're going to make 100% that our young people get exactly what they need. I'm not saying that politics won't be a part of the equation. I'm saying that young people and decisions around young people will come first in everything that we do. These are our 4 pillars. And this comes from the exact same work that I talked about when I gave my story a few minutes ago. And really making certain that we're highlighting, are we building quality relationships so that we can develop trust within our community? Because we need our community to be a part of this work. We need our community to engage in this work with us. We need parents to understand where their part lies. We need community members to understand where their responsibility lies. We need business leaders to understand the contributions that they're going to make to what we call K-12 education in Paterson Public Schools. We need to make sure that academic outcomes for every single child is top-notch. And when we say every single child, we mean every single child. If a child is receiving special education services, that's what they are receiving. That is not who they are. We're going to make 100% certain that even our young people who are receiving special education services or English language learner services, they're getting the best service that we can provide. But we're also going to challenge them with additional rigorous opportunities in the academic arena. We want to make sure that our young people have strong after-school programs, because we know that no school district in America can do this alone. We need our partners on the outside to help us with what we're doing in the inside, but they have to understand what we're doing. When we ask them to provide some support, we have to give them some direction to be able to provide some support. We have to make sure that we're holding each other accountable in this reciprocal relationship as we begin to engage in making sure that our young people are getting what they need. And then the last pillar really speaks to a safe school. Every single school in the district must be a safe school, not optional. Every single school in the district must be a safe school. As I went to school in the city of Baltimore, I was able to experience the educational opportunities because I was in a safe school. In America, every single child deserves that exact same opportunity. So I'm going to expound a little bit about when we talk about improved relationships in community to build trust. My responsibility is to make sure that I'm extremely visible. I'm out and about in the community. I'm meeting individuals, but I also need for you to help me in this effort as well. Because we have to make certain that we're engaging in conversations so that as we're talking to the community, we're saying the exact same message. It's just like singing a song. If we're going to sing in a chorus, we have to be on the same tune. And in Paterson Public Schools, we will be on the same tune. We're going to help our community to get on the exact same tune. And we're going to make sure that we're unified and that we're one in this work in educating every single one of our young people. Because again, I say, together, we are better. And when we trust each other and we believe each other, we become a family, and we are a family, and we're going to make sure that everyone is a part of that family. Goal number 2, which talks about academic outcomes. When I did a review of the academic outcomes for the district, I immediately noticed for 3rd through 8th grade mathematics proficiency, right now we're at the bottom of the rung for the state. My vision is that we're going to be at the top 50% in the state. Why? Because every single one of you that are sitting in front of me, every single one of the staff members that are sitting in every single one of our schools can make this a reality. And we will make this a reality. We're going to make sure that this goal here that speaks to above 50% with regards to performance, that it is applicable across every single school throughout the entire district. And we're going to ensure that young people are making that mark. The exact same thing when it comes to reading and doing a review and a comparison of our performance against the state's performance. This is highlighting that we can do it, and we will do it. We will make sure that in 5 years, we are surpassing the state's performance indicators, and we are outperforming the state of New Jersey. I 100% know that the state of New Jersey is the #1 educational system in the country, surpassing Massachusetts. That's happening because they're great educators in the state of New Jersey. But we're going to show them that they're great educators right here in the school district of Paterson Public Schools. The same thing when we talk about on-time graduation. In a comparison, 90% of graduates are graduating high school in the state of New Jersey. Currently, 79% are graduating high school in Paterson Public Schools. Again, our goal is to get to that 90% target. We need to make sure that every single young person within our district, starting in 8th grade, no later than 8th grade, that they have completed Algebra 1 and they have completed English 1. By the time they enter into high school, they will have no less than 2 high school credits entering into high school. And in many cases, they will have all of their 9th grade high school credits completed before they even enter high school. Why? It allows them to be able to enter high school as a sophomore to immediately start taking advanced placement courses, to immediately spend time on college campuses so that they can get an understanding of what it feels like to go to college. 2 reasons should never prevent us from sending young people to college: money and academics. We can find the money, and we're going to produce the academics, and we're going to do both right here in Paterson Public Schools. When we talk about what does a 21st century graduate look like within our district, us outlining a framework to say we're graduating graduates who are critical thinkers, problem solvers, engage in the community. They're advocating for themselves, but they're also advocating for their community in which they live. They're critical analyzers. They know how to build relationships with diverse groups of people, because that's what we do in the world in which we live. And 100%, they respect diversity. Why? Because we are in a diverse community, and we want to make sure that our graduates are mastering that. When you get to priority number 3, talking about after-school activities, this is just a list of a few, but we need to make sure that we have an after-school activity for every single young person that's in the district. Every single young person. I was coming in today and I saw some of our young people walking down the street here, and the young fella asked me if I was the principal, and I said no, and I'm thinking in my mind, hopefully I'll be your superintendent soon. But I want to be able to engage our young people around how are we going to make sure that they're off to the rec center so that they can engage in a 7-to-7 opportunity. And what is a 7-to-7 opportunity? Our young people come to us 7 in the morning and they can go back home 7 at night. Why? Because we know that that is the time period at which young people remain idle. And when young people are idle, young people do young people things. We want to prevent them from doing that. Lastly, when I talk about safe schools, this is just an example of we have to make 100% certain that every single school within our district is safe. And that's going to be the expectation, to ensure that when young people step foot in our schools, young people know and feel comfortable being present there. They want to be there. And we're going to make sure that they're as comfortable being in every one of our schools as I was as comfortable in being in Mr. Clem's class. That's my time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just to be mindful of our challenge, 29 minutes, 10 questions. We can do it. We're going to do it. Question number 1.
Yes.
Please describe actions you've taken in the past to improve academic achievement for students in a school district with similar demographics as Paterson, and highlight any significant results you have achieved.
Yes. So again, when we talk about academic performance and academic outcomes, for me, it's really making sure that we have a concentrated effort on providing young people with exactly what they need. So I'll give you some feedback and some information around the work that we did, again, when I was in Colorado as a superintendent. When I walked into classrooms in Colorado, and I walked into advanced placement classrooms, and this was a district full of kids of color. When I walked into that classroom, I didn't see any kid in that classroom who looked like me. Every single kid in the classroom was Caucasian, and we had 10% of our population that was Caucasian. It wasn't because our young people didn't have the academic ability to be able to do it. It was simply because they weren't provided the opportunity. So what was something that we immediately did? We eliminated all criteria to enter into any academic classroom, because young people can be able to choose as long as they get the adequate counseling. When we did that, we immediately saw a 40% increase in the number of young people who were of color who were taking advanced placement courses. In addition to that 40% increase, we saw a 25% increase in the number of young people who were actually passing the exam. Why? Because we provided Saturday school opportunities and Sunday school opportunities for them to do some catch-up work around the academic performance. Those things don't happen by happenstance. Those things happen by strategy and making sure that we're very intentional in giving our young people the opportunity. I wind that back down to our elementary grades. In our elementary schools, something that we made sure that we did was we concentrated very heavily on literacy. One, building teachers' understanding about the way in which we teach literacy. So we called it teacher clarity. And that's just getting very clear about the standards of expectation that's outlined. What does that look like when we engage in standards of expectation and when we engage young people in a task around standards of expectation? And by doing that, we saw 25% of our young people, 25% of our schools, I should say, where our elementary schools were, 25% of them had achieved 100% mastery on the state proficiency exam in literacy. Again, it's by intentionality and making sure that we had a concentrated effort around really improving academic outcomes for young people.
Thank you. Question number 2, how do you plan on working with Paterson's unions to promote a positive work environment and support school employees?
Repeat that for me one more time. I'm gonna grab
Sure.
this mic and you don't mind.
Absolutely. Question 2, how do you plan on working with Paterson's unions to promote a positive work environment and support school employees?
Yes. So I 100% believe that the work that we do with unions has to be really around a collaborative approach and a collaborative effort. My time when I was in New York City, I worked in Queens, pretty much in South Jamaica and the Forest Hills area, but I immediately connected with our unions. And when I connected with our unions, I immediately said, what I want us to engage in every month is what we call monthly consultations. Our consultations allow for us to begin to engage in conversation around what was going on in our schools. We had 111 schools, 151,000 young people in those schools. And we made sure that teachers were still getting the resources that they were able to get, but we also made sure that we were providing the direct support. So whenever an issue or a circumstance came up, I immediately got a call from our union leaders. We immediately jumped into consultation mode. We immediately started discussing ways in which we could begin to engage. Another thing that I immediately started doing with our union leaders was as I would go out and I would do job shadow days. And my job shadow days wasn't me going out to a particular location. If I'm working with the building engineer or if I'm working with the cafeteria staff, it wasn't me going out and listening to the work that they do. It was me going out and actually doing what they do. I told them to let me do what you do. And I invited our union leaders. My purpose in inviting our union leaders so that they can see that I do the exact same job that everyone else does. And then when we go back to consultation, I can say, do you remember when? And then we can begin to have some conversation as to how can we collaborate on improving a particular circumstance if a circumstance needs to be improved. What I ended up finding out from some of our union leaders, they would say, well, you know what, things weren't as bad as I actually thought. Or maybe we could do this better. And this is how we can help the school district to do this better. That really made our relationship very strong. And in fact, I still have a good relationship with our borough president over in New York City, over in Queens still today.
Question number 3. What steps will you take to ensure teachers have the materials and time they need to meet the needs of all students in Paterson City Public Schools, particularly special education and English language learner students?
Yes. So whenever we're talking about making sure that teachers have the resources that they need, that's just number one. Teachers aren't able to teach if they don't have the materials or resources to teach. And I'm a firm believer that teachers should not have to go and purchase their own resources. That's the purpose of us having the funds in a school district, is to be able to make sure that we purchase the resources that they need. The second aspect of that is developing what I call and what I've used as a central repository. That central repository allows for us to be able to have teachers to send us a message that I can get a report from every week that lets me know which teachers do not have which resources. So if a teacher doesn't have a resource, teacher logs into this repository, the teacher says, I do not have XYZ, this is the school I'm in, this is what I need. This wasn't about an I got you. This wasn't about making sure we're taking care of our people. This was about making sure that principals understood from the bottom line, we're not coming into your school to penalize, we're coming into your school to help. And so that's what we wanted to make sure that we did. The second aspect of that, and making sure that teachers are getting the resources that they need. I'm an educator, I'm a teacher first. I'm a teacher at heart, I love to teach. When I go into the classroom, I'm going to pick up something and I'm going to raise my hand, put up my church finger, I guess I can call it, and tell the teacher, hey, let me jump in and let me teach real quick. And then I start teaching. Sometimes I get it wrong, sometimes I get it right, but I tell the teacher, don't judge. Don't judge. So in that particular case, what I do is I give the opportunity for teachers to see me doing their work. When I'm a part of their PLCs, their professional learning communities, it gives me the opportunity to understand, not just do you have the resource, but how does this resource become user-friendly? Because if it's not user-friendly, then we need to figure out what we need to do different. But I need to be a part of that conversation and making sure the teachers understand how that happens.
Thank you. Next, question 4. What experience do you have addressing facilities needs in the school district, and what steps will you take to begin addressing our aging facilities needs?
Yes. So something that I've done in every district that I've been in, and I do that in my current district right now, we just passed a $280 million bond in our district. We're currently building 3 schools, 1 elementary school, 1 K-8 school, and 1 early college high school in my district, and we're building other multiple facilities within the district. But something that I immediately did in my district was we developed what we called a 10-year forecast plan. And what does that 10-year forecast plan look like? It is simply a facilities plan to let us know what are the projects we need to make sure that we're tackling within the next 10 years and what is the actual cost. So if you were to look at this plan, you will see every single building or facility or space down to parking lots within our district that has been outlined that may need a replacement by the end of whatever its expiration period or date is. It allows for us to be able to go and say, in the next 10 years, we're going to have to make sure that we have $25 million to be able to spend on X. And we will be able to spend on X. It allows for us to do that planning. The second piece to talking about facilities and operations is my operations guy has developed, and we work with him to develop, what we have is an electronic platform that says we have a 72-hour repair and operations platform. You take a picture with your cell phone of a particular item that is broken. You send that picture into the system, and we can immediately see where that particular issue or project is. So if I'm out visiting campuses and I see something is not repaired or something is not fixed, I do the exact same thing. I take a picture, I immediately send that picture in, and then I can track what is the outcome that's happening with that particular repair. Can't say we always get it right, but it's a quick way for us to be able to measure how well we're performing against what we've set as a standard.
Thank you. Question 5 is, what's your position on charter schools, and how will you ensure that families have high-quality schooling options within Paterson City Public Schools?
Absolutely. So I'm not anti or pro charter school. I am pro great safe schools. That's what I want to see, great safe schools. And I 100% believe that in Paterson Public Schools, we have great safe schools. And we can make sure that the programs and opportunities that we provide in our district are programs and opportunities that our parents and our young people want to take advantage of. So right now in our district, we have International Baccalaureate schools. There are Blue Ribbon schools. There's a P-TECH school. There's an all-boys school. So there are options. However, we also have to go back to the community and begin to ask the community, what else do you want to see? So something that we have done in my existing district with our K-8 school. The school is due to open up in the fall of this coming year. And what we have asked the community is, what is the program that you want to see at this particular school? And what they told us was Tech Prep. Well, Tech Prep is a high school program. And they said, yeah, we know it's a high school program, but we want to see it at the K-8 because we want to make sure that our young people are prepared to transition into high school. So we implemented, or we're going to implement, the Tech Prep program at the K-8. We're working through Project Lead the Way right now to begin to establish a curricular program for that Tech Prep program at the K-8 campus in preparation for young people to be able to transition into high school. But the exact same work can happen right here in Paterson Public Schools.
Thank you. What will you do to get more parents engaged with Paterson City Public Schools?
Yes. So when I think about parental engagement and what does that look like, I immediately go back to my parents, because my mom was one, because she worked 11 to 7 in the morning, she didn't have time to necessarily come to the school. It wasn't that she wasn't engaged, she was engaged in a different way. She was making sure that I was taking care of some things at home, which perhaps we didn't have the opportunity to see. But the way that I plan to make sure that we have parental engagement is, one, making sure that I'm out in the community and I'm having conversations with parents. I'm getting an understanding of what are their needs. What does it look like when we talk about parental engagement to them, and how can we make sure that they are part of that equation? Do we have a parent university at every single campus in the district, so that when parents are coming to the campus and they're engaging in meaningful tasks that they believe is really contributing to the outcomes of that particular campus? Do we have a welcome center in the district, which is a one-stop shop where parents can go? If a parent is new to the community, the parent can go, the parent can register their child, they can seek employment, they can seek other resources that they may have a need for right there at the welcome center. The Welcome Center connects with the parent liaison at the school. The parent liaison at the school immediately connects the parent with the parent university and begin to get them engaged and begin to have them connected. I myself, I have parent forums. On a monthly basis, I do what I call soup with the superintendent or coffee with the superintendent. I don't have an agenda at all. I just go and I give parents the opportunity to talk. If I'm out and about at a football game or I'm out and about walking my dog and I see parents in the community, I want to be able to stop and I want to be able to have a conversation with them. I want to understand what it is that they need. I want to understand what can we begin to do that's different to help them to become better at their job. I want them to know that collectively this is going to take a combined effort to make sure that their child gets exactly what their child needs. And then the last piece that I'll add to that as well is having an electronic opportunity for parents to be able to connect. So something that I've done in the previous district is I've set up times where I've said for parents, I'm going to be on a line from 6 to 8 p.m. This is going to be the agenda of what I'm talking about, and then there will be opportunities for parents to ask questions. So parents could be home cooking, and then they want to hear about a particular topic, so they can phone in and hear me talk about that topic from 6:55 until 7:15. But they also know that from 7:30 until 7:45 is when I'm taking questions. So if they want to ask a question, they could phone in at 7:30 and 7:45 and begin to ask questions. So there are multiple ways that we can begin to engage parents and connect with parents.
Thank you. Question 7. Describe how you will go about prioritizing a budget for the Paterson City Public Schools, and discuss who you'll bring to the table to develop your budget priorities.
Absolutely. So I'll start with the who comes to the table. I think it's definitely in the obvious that we have, one, our staff have to be at the table, so the staff of that particular school, making sure that teachers are at the table, making sure that paraprofessionals are at the table. If it is a high school or middle school, making sure that you have at least 2 young people who are sitting at the table talking about the design and development of that particular campus budget and really getting an understanding. Making sure that we have community leaders who are at the table having conversation about that budget. Anyone that you have a partnership with needs to be at that table having a conversation about that budget. Something that I think is really important and really essential, and it has helped me and the experiences across the spectrum in districts that I've been in, is coming in and making sure that we develop a 5-year forecast. What does that 5-year forecast allow for us to be able to do? That 5-year forecast allows for us to be able to take a look at, this is the way in which we are spending our dollars and where we're spending our dollars at this moment, but where will we be spending our dollars in the next 5 years? How will inflation impact that? Because that allows for us to begin to make some decisions around who do we need to advocate in order to get additional money, even before the time comes for us to be able to do that, so that we can make sure that we're advocating the right individuals. We're writing the right grants that will allow for us to be able to have a connection to some academic outcomes. In my experiences in Colorado, we wrote a $9 million grant to subsidize our staff salaries because we knew that over the 5-year period of time, we just were not going to have enough resource that came in via the state to be able to support the increase in salaries that we wanted to provide. That $9 million grant allowed for us to be able to continue with that increase in salaries. But that only came about because we were able to actually plan for that through that 5-year forecast. So that's a piece that I think would be essential and critical to bring here in Paterson.
Thank you. Improving literacy scores is a high priority for our district. Describe what you've done to improve literacy performance in previous positions.
Yes, sir. So literacy is, I've never been a reading teacher, I'm a former science teacher, but literacy is something that's near and dear to my heart. And it's near and dear to my heart because when I was an assistant principal, I was an assistant principal at a K-8 school. And that's where I really learned how to teach reading. I would actually go into the classroom and I would tell teachers, hey, give me your group so that I can practice on teaching literacy. And God forgive me on practicing on at that time and teaching literacy because I was not great at teaching literacy at that point. But it really helped me to get better. It really helped me to truly understand the dynamics of teaching reading. And what I learned from that is ways in which we can make sure that we're helping teachers. One, how can we make sure that teachers have an additional support right there in the classroom to be able to do small group instruction and do small group instruction effectively? How can we make sure that we have an electronic system to be able to allow for teachers to be able to quickly input data into a system, pull the data out of the system so that they know which young people belong to which group and which young people can be accelerated or advanced. Doing the exact same thing in high school. High school, we may call it learning labs, where young people are transitioning through learning labs based on a particular interest, but then also based on where they are performing with regards to their reading levels. And how are we increasing their reading levels to be able to be more proficient? So those are opportunities that we can begin to bring right here in the district. Making certain that young people, one, have an academic learning plan. And in that academic learning plan, they clearly understand and know exactly what their literacy goals are. Starting from kindergarten all the way through grade 12, they know where their literacy performance is. If they're having a challenge, every single campus has what we call a data wall. Doesn't necessarily have to be on a wall, it can be on a computer, it can be on another platform. But nevertheless, it lets the campus administration and campus teachers know exactly where each young person is performing against their literacy goals and how well they are progressing towards that literacy goal. If we need to make sure that we're providing an additional intervention, rather it's a strategic intervention or an intensive intervention that's focused on a very specific skill, teachers know that. They have the resources to be able to do that. All of those components are combined in making sure that we have quality literacy in every single school.
Thank you. Next, what's your experience with community schools, and how would you prioritize expanding access to appropriate resources to all schools within Paterson City Public Schools?
Yes. So communities in schools has been a lifesaver in many cases. And I would definitely say in my experiences, when I was in New York City Department of Education, working with communities in schools, we partnered with the city to be able to bring in social workers in our schools. We partnered with the city to be able to bring in additional nurses to support in our schools, mental health clinicians to support in our schools. Every single community school had a community-based organization. That community-based organization knew that their responsibility was to have outreach back to the community so that there could be wraparound services that are provided directly to that particular school. If a young person had a particular challenge in their family and the family needs some counseling or support, we can reach out to Integral Care and say, this is a service that we need for not only the child, but this is a service that we need for that family. And that family gets the service that he or she needs, even down to food that might be needed within that particular family. That's the work that community and schools have done, and that's the work that community and schools continuously do. In addition to that, community and schools provide opportunities for tutorial services and tutorial supports. So not just tutorial supports in school, because we're going to provide that. We needed them to also provide tutorial services outside of school. But we didn't just want them to provide tutorial services. We have to be able to partner with them to make sure that the tutorial services that young people are getting are matching or aligned what they're getting in school, so that we're really advancing the academic outcome for the young person rather than creating some level of confusion. But that's how we begin to build that wraparound service, making sure that we're partnering with the city, making sure that we're partnering with the state. We're partnering with businesses to be able to bring in some support. It goes right back to that community of building trust and making sure that we have opportunities for young people that everyone in our community has a level of accountability to.
With 5 minutes remaining, we will conclude with closing thoughts.
Yes. So again, I say to each and every one of you that when I think about Paterson Public Schools, I really think about my own upbringing. I really think about my family. I start to think about my dad immediately and how he made me feel and what that did for me as a young person. And I feel that when I step into the community. I see that when I step into the community and I have conversations with people. When I go to 7-Eleven and I just ask the clerk in 7-Eleven, tell me a little bit about your experiences with the school district. When I can actually have an opportunity to say to a young fellow that's walking down the street, tell me a little bit about your experiences with the school district. I know 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, that collectively in the district and Paterson Public Schools, we can make 100% sure that every single young person in the district is getting a quality education, the best education that we can provide, which provides them the opportunity to have choices when they leave us. If they choose to go to college, if they choose to go into a career, if they choose to go to the military, or if they choose to develop their own business, they will have those options available to them. They know that they're coming to a school that is a safe place where people love and care for them, and where people can make them feel like they are smart, make them feel like they belong, make them feel like we want them to be there. I know that happens right here in Paterson Public Schools. And when I think about wanting to come in and be the superintendent, it's not coming in with all of the answers. It's coming in to be a part of the team to produce the answers. Because again, I say to you, as I started out earlier, no one of us can do this work alone. Not any one of us can do this work alone. It takes a collective effort. It takes an entire village to be able to make sure that young people get the best education that they need. And I say to that, together, we are better. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank all of our candidates tonight, and I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. And just a reminder, now the Board of Education would like your feedback. So you have an opportunity to go to the website, and on the website you can provide feedback on the candidates that you saw tonight. That information will be gathered and given to your Board of Education, and I believe they will be convening on October 27th to discuss next steps. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Travel safely.
Thank you.